no one likes to admit that they have a churn problem. Today, we get someone to share not only their problem, but also how they actually fixed it.
And that made our churn spike to like 15 or 16% per month from like 10, right? But I was like, oh, here's an opportunity to like really be dramatic about like a shockingly large churn number and get a ton of attention, be super brutally honest about it all, and then get a ton of feedback.
That's Adam Robinson. And what did he do when churn spiked? He posted about it on LinkedIn.
Again, like we're back to like 10 or 10.5%, but like when an opportunity presents itself to do something that is shocking things will break through. The amazing thing about that post was 393 people wrote me that canceled and told me why, right? Like I mean, the amount of time it would have taken to accumulate that level of intelligence if it was done through a product person and meetings and like whatever. I don't even know if you could have over the course of a year, right?
Before we jump into the show, today's episode is brought to you by Everstage, the top-rated sales commissions platform on G2, Gartner Peer Insights, and Trustradius, with more than 2,000 reviews from customers like Diligent, Wiley, Trimble, and more. Visit everstage.com and mention Revenue Formula to unlock a personalized sales compensation strategy session with one of Everstage's RevOps experts. And now, enjoy the show. That's it.
So we're kind of, you probably never watched this show before, I'm assuming here. Or did you check us out? Did you
Strangely, yeah, no, I just do I just have a lot going on right now. I don't spend, 90% of my social media time, or 95, is spent actually just writing posts. Yeah. I don't actually spend time doing other stuff because I just can't.
And I think that's I think that's a rookie parent answer, because what you could have said is, hey, I just had a kid. Sorry, I'm not sleeping much. So that's
kind of... Hey, he's in America. He doesn't. This is not part of the excuse set.
Whoa. Yeah. Shots fired. And I mean, we're usually we sit in this amazing studio, perfectly lit and everything. Right now, we're sitting in a room that's undergoing construction.
Yeah,
at the moment.
It's my attic. We're sitting in my attic, actually.
This is a very posh attic for sure. Yeah. So I mean, we're sitting here for the first time, and we're talking with a builder, and we're gonna talk a bit about building.
That's the introduction.
I don't know. It's terrible. I told you I don't have much today. I have 3 kids. Three
kids, two kids. Yes, we are a couple of that. No, actually. So what we have found out, because we do talk about kids for some reason a lot.
I wonder why.
A lot of our listeners that don't have kids, they basically told us that they listened to us and therefore made the decision to never have kids. Like that
can happen. I thought I didn't want kids for long. I didn't have kids till I was 42 years old. I resisted a long time. In my late 30s, I was like, nah, I don't really need it. But then, I met the right person, and then you get married, and then you have kids.
I mean, you can't. At some point, you just can't do anything.
It's called bartering,
right? Yeah. Exactly. The urge is just too strong to resist.
Yeah.
The primal. Oh, that's
urge.
It. But I mean, you've also put a couple of other babies into this world. One is retention.com, and the other one, which we're going to focus a bit on today, is our B2B. I think what would be really cool, Adam, is maybe just to hear this story. Obviously, this company has grown really, really fast to, I think, about where you're at now, 3 million AR?
Yeah, it's like eight months and 7 days in, and we'll probably hit 4 million ARR today.
Jesus.
Amazing. Congrats.
Jesus. Nice.
I think what would be really great is for those who maybe doesn't know the company, know you that well, just to hear what's happened in that time. Like, how did you build that company up until the point it is now?
Have you heard of the blog post 1,000 True Fans by Kevin Kelly? Yeah. So like, that's like a nice idea, right? But who starts there? You know what I mean? Like there's this idea that like, oh yeah, like go out and build an audience, and then you can like sell whatever into the audience. But that actually, with this startup, that's like what happened. And it wasn't even really that intentional. My other company, retention.com, in the middle of 2022, so like we're at the end of 2024 right now. So 2.5 years ago, we were like, we were like 10 or 11 million ARR with 6 people. And that happened over like 3 years. We had honed in on an ICP big Shopify stores. I was looking at Klaviyo, who's about to go public, and their metrics are absolutely incredible on every single way you could look at them. And I was like, oh, like we have a product that has it's like low single digit penetration into this market. It's just crushing it for all of these big stores. The inbound's crazy. We have like, we had Klaviyo sales metrics, like they have like a 70% close rate if it hits the AE. So it was like, we had something crazy like that. 70-80% close rate, 7-day deal. We were doing these 30K ACV annual contracts. And I was like, holy shit, like this is Klaviyo, like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. So I was like, I need to hire a team. And then I just viewed it as an awareness problem. Like once we just said what we did, all of these stores, once they knew who was working with us and how well it was working, it was like, how do I, you know what I mean? Like it was just this magic, right? So I was like, okay, what is the quickest way to spread awareness in the world today? No question it's building, in my mind, no question it is building a personal profile on social media. No question. Like it's 10 times more effective than building a brand profile. So then it was like, okay, I got to do that. I'd never done it before. It was like, how? I had some paralysis there. And then, there's another company in the Shopify space. Like we were growing off of word of mouth and cold email. There was another company called Triple Whale who's growing off of word of mouth and Twitter. So I went to them. They had an office in Austin. I was like, guys, like, can I show you how to do this email thing? Show me how to do this social media thing. And their social media guy's like, yeah, I think, and it's like, where do we start? He's like, well, Twitter's super competitive. I think you should start on LinkedIn, get 10, 20,000 followers, and then go try to crack the Twitter game because it's just going to be harder. Because like I think even still only like 2% of active LinkedIn users create content. So it's like, if your audience is super active on LinkedIn, there is a very favorable creator to consumer dynamic that doesn't exist really anywhere else. So that was a plan. So I did my first LinkedIn post in October of 2022, and it really took a year for it to like click. And it clicked when meanwhile, we hone in on this Shopify ICP. I like call my shot that we're going to go 15 to 50 million ARR. I make a docuseries about it. And like 2023 was just a disaster. It was like super hard for e-com SaaS, super hard for every SaaS. Like we were overselling people for 5 months, didn't realize it. Like people are renewing these deals that I thought we were going to get expansion. And like, I'm being so loud about everything. Like 5 competitors show up and we're getting contraction at the renewals. It was just like the pain that I know companies like Outreach, 6 Sense, Demand Base or whatever are feeling right now, who like really benefited from that zero interest rate policy. None of them are growing. They're all either stuck in the mud or shrinking. And it's sad because they raised at these huge valuations and you can't raise it 20 times revenue and shrink ever. Or you're done, right? Like, I don't even know what they're going to do. It's like they're zombies. They're going to have these like weird take under, Vista, Sales Loft drift kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So like that really sucks if you're them and you have stock in those companies and your employees or like whatever, because like they're all less than the value of the money that's been put in, right? All of them. But like for us, we were bootstrapped. Like I didn't raise any money, so I built this team for like 100 million ARR company, and like over the course of the following 12 months, we just like got it to, it's kind of like at the same place it was. We kind of dipped and got back, but like now I got half the team size, so like this business is cranking out 10 million bucks or whatever, which is like a wonderful thing to own. So that's just backstory on retention.com. LinkedIn for retention.com, and Dave Gerhardt on my show on Tuesday corrected me here. I could not get I had not found my voice for e-commerce. After a year, I gotten pretty good. It was doing a lot of very positive things for us. Like it really created a brand in the Shopify ecosystem, which is super important. Agencies need to know who you are. The other vendors need to know who you are. Like everyone needs to like be okaying you and blessing your use by all of these big brands. It did that. What it did not do was it did not directly drive leads, right? It wasn't doing that. And then my excuse, which Gerhardt tells me that I'm wrong, and he's right, because like he actually, for Ben Jobway, this guy who he worked for at Privy, he actually found that guy's voice for ecom. And that guy's not an ecom guy. He's a SaaS guy.
Yeah.
So I just hadn't found my angle yet. And Santosh, my COO, is a B2B data guy. He's like, dude, he'd been pushing me the entire time. He's like, we got to make this for B2B, because if it works for selling $100 pair of shoes, it's going to work for selling $50,000 software, which we can go into that later because there's an interesting churn conversation. But that was the original thought. And like, it's hard to argue with. Like, intuitively, it makes a lot of sense. And 2023 was such a disaster that I'm like, dude, we're not ready. We got to clean this situation up before we like go do something completely different. So around Labor Day, meanwhile, we did a big downsizing of our sales team in 2023, and I wrote a post about it, and it was just a banger. It was like, you know, I was getting like 50 likes, and it got 1,000 likes, right? And I'm like, that's interesting. And then people started talking to me about this BDR pain that everybody was having in 2023 who was like in this sales and marketing space. So I go to Alec, my LinkedIn consultant. I'm like, dude, Santosh wants to do this B2B thing. Can we just like see if I can write to this B2B audience? Cause like, I'm curious, you know? And he's like, yeah, why not? What do you want to do? Half and half? I'm like, let's just go like whole hog for like the month of September in 2023 and just see what happens. And I'm not kidding you. So like, I wrote one post about what I had been hearing about BDR from everybody and it not working for anyone. And either they had cut their teams or they were thinking about it, right? In VC, in anything related to tech. So it's like the 8 things I'm hearing, right? That one got 3,000 likes. And I was like, what? So then I'm starting to get a sense for like what a hot take was. I never could conceptualize it, but I'm like, okay, so this is stuff that like people are afraid to admit to themselves because they're going to have to fire a bunch of people and ruin a bunch of people's lives. It's something that you might say to your spouse behind closed doors, right? Like I'm starting, but still I'm like, okay, was I just lucky, right? So like there's this moment last year over Labor Day, which is like beginning of September, end of August. I was in Santa Fe with my wife, my kid, and my friends who have a kid too. Meanwhile, the prior week, I was just so like my head was spinning because I just had this viral thing happen for the first time, you know? And I thought I kind of knew why, but I like wasn't sure. And then we had an 8 o'clock dinner, and I always sit down and write all my posts at once. Like, you know, hour and a half, 2 hours. I knock 3 out for the week. So like I write these 3 posts, and then we're walking to dinner. I'm like, man, guys, like if these are bangers, and I think they are, then like I know what LinkedIn wants from me. You know, like I know how to write viral posts. If they're not, then I'm exactly where I was a year ago. I still have no fucking idea, right? Like, because if these are not bangers, then everything that I thought about why the last one was a banger was just wrong. It was luck, right? So then bang, 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 over the course of the week, it was like 2 million impressions across 3 posts. They were all this like, you're not going to believe it. You know, we fired all of our BDRs and our growth grew up. Like, so yeah, at that moment, I was like, I just remember calling Diana, who just called me, my co-founder, and I was like, man, I can write these posts. Like, I know what's going on here, right? Like, and over the last year, until this call on Tuesday, I'm like, it's magical to have the alignment of you being your ICP and your ICP being living on a social media network. I think Gerhardt's argument is like, it's easier, but it's not necessarily magical. I mean, it is magical if you're willing to do what I'm doing. Anyway, there's a content market fit thing that if you are your ICP, a lot can happen for you that doesn't happen if you're not, right?
I kind of have a question kind of jumping into this, right? So we're talking about your content market fit journey here actually, and kind of finding your voice on LinkedIn and then building this audience on LinkedIn to a B2B crowd, basically. I'm assuming that's...
And by the way, we hadn't even decided to make the product yet. This was
that's
purely
actually,
like...
That's actually my point. That's actually my point here. It's like, you built this audience, and from what I could gather, like, you know, RB2B hasn't been conceived yet at that point, right? And you know, basically, were those the steps? Like, okay, we have this audience, we have this retention.com thing.
And we didn't even have the audience. Yeah, we didn't even have the audience yet. So like that week, my followers, I built it up from like 0 to 20,000 over a year. They went to 40,000 in 7 days.
Yeah.
And then I was like, holy cow, I know what to do here. We need to start making this product. So the audience wasn't even there. I built it while we were building the product. And then these posts were so amazing, and they spread so far and wide. Like I'm all about this like customer discovery, build your buyers. The best scenario is you can sell something before you even start building it.
Yep.
Yeah.
That wasn't exactly what happened with this, but we were able to have like 300 discovery calls between October and March when we launched the product, just off of like very soft closes in posts that were like things like, oh, I talked to like 20 CMOs about demand-based and 6 cents. Not a single one of them like had said anything positive. Like, here's the 6 truths about this, dubious product category, right? And then it's like, by the way, if you want to like close the loop on IBM and talk about person level website visitor identity, hit me up, and like 200 people would write in. So yeah, it was literally like audience first, which like, I don't want to say I fell into it, but like, I don't know, I kind of fell into it. It was like everything worked out perfectly to have this explosive thing happen. And then by the way, like the product that we thought we were building was not what it ended up being. And people were not that excited about it in the beginning. We like gave them during this October to March period, we very quickly just made like a pixel that sent a spreadsheet every day of data. And like, I couldn't get people to buy that. Like they were not, I'm like, you wouldn't, would you pay $500? It's like, nah. Would you pay $199? It's like, maybe, And then there was a there was a magic moment with actually pushing the LinkedIn URL with a headshot into Slack. And then when I held my phone up at like parties and I was like, this person is on retention.com's website right now. Then it was like, holy shit. People were like, is that for sale? Like, how do I get that? So then I was like, okay, there's so much viral. I was first thinking like, let's do sales led because intent is a high churn product category, which we can go in later. So I want to go for a lower churn buyer persona first. Yeah. But there was so much virality in the content that I thought that I would benefit from the virality of a free offer so much more than someone who didn't have the viral content aspect, and they would like kind of work off of each other. And there's this other dynamic where it's not that sketchy anymore after 8 months, but like it was still a weird, they had been being told by Demand-Based and 6 Cents and Terminus or whatever that like, you can't do this, which like legally you can, there's like this self-regulatory governing board called the IAB in the US that says you shouldn't do this, but like nobody who buys from me even knows what that is. They just know they've been told to not do it. And when I'm like, well, here's the law that says you can, and until it changes, why wouldn't you do this, right? So
because you have mentioning 6 Cents now a couple of times, I forgot where this was on the timeline. But when did that letter arrive?
Yeah, 3 weeks after we launched, it was just the most amazing thing that's ever happened ever. I sort of instigated it, like.
So wait, you got a cease and desist letter, and this is the most amazing thing that
ever happened in my. It's probably a pivotal moment of my career, actually. Yeah. Like the short story is like, we bought their product to compare it to ours, which was really interesting because there's between any of these tools, there's very little overlap because people are doing identity differently and their databases are slightly different. So like, and then actually the percentage of ideal customer profile visitors of anyone's web traffic is so low that if you have low-ish overlap, you'll have virtually no ICP overlap, which is just a really interesting thing. So anyway, I bought their product to just see what the output was. And then 6 months in, and mind you, like I'm going through the most epic pain, contracting renewals, like cancellations, like, people just beating us up about price, like left, right, and center. I know the environment for SaaS, like nobody is doing what they were able to do in 2020 with price, as far as I can tell. Right? Like it's just the opposite now. Like ZoomInfo is shrinking, who's like the king of just like, I'm going to stick it to you and double your price this year and you can't go anywhere else. Right? Yeah. Maybe Salesforce still has some leverage, maybe, but like nobody else. And they're not raising. They're just trying to keep people the same. Right? So these guys call us up, and it wasn't even me. It was our RevOps guy. They call the RevOps guy up and they're like, hey, we're going to triple the price of this, but like, if you sign a deal today, we'll keep it the same. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? In 2023, you have the audacity to have that conversation. And this is like, all of us are just like, so if we raise the price of our product on Shopify guys by $1, they would literally, they would burn us at the stake. Like they would, you know what I mean?
There'll be picketers outside.
I'm like, and then of course they come back the next day, they're like, okay, you know, if you sign the deal today, we'll keep it the same. And I was like, you are such fucking scumbags. So like, I just like wrote a post that is ridiculous about how they did that and like why they're afraid of me and don't want me using their product. Totally absurd, right? Like, I'm like, they know their data's terrible. You know, they know that I'm going to like come from the bottom and make them go bankrupt and all this crap. And then like, you know, we're in a new world with like this influencer thing and like how much power people have. And by the way, they're hated, which is like really important. Like there's a big, there's a deep like if this was Klaviyo in the Shopify space, I never could have done this because people love Klaviyo. But like so many people have been smoked by 6 Sense that it's ruined their careers, right? They bet on this thing. And then as the marketer, and then the sales team's like, we've never gotten a good lead. All of their plays don't work. Like, this is absurd. And then the CEO's like, and we spent $250,000 a year on this and signed a 3-year deal. What the fuck? So like a bunch of people have been smoked on it. So they went with the old school playbook, which a big company always does. They send the person who's talking shit online a cease and desist. And typically somebody's like, I'm sorry. And the cease and desist demanded, it was crazy what it demanded. Like, because that post popped. There were 500 comments all saying fuck 6 Sense basically. Yes. And the post, it was like, say you're sorry, you know, take the post down, say you're sorry, and tag every single person who commented in the post. Right. So like I couldn't even do that if I wanted to. Right. Yeah. So I called my lawyer and I'm like, hey, like, if I get sued, what is the maximum financial liability? He's like, it's 99% bullshit, but like you're not supposed to talk about price. You sign a contract, like maybe some judge somewhere is like, you know, fines you a couple $100,000 for that or something. But it would be maximum a few $100,000 over a few years, right? I'm like, oh man. I'm like, and that's the worst that can happen if I post the actual cease and desist on LinkedIn. He's like, yep, that's the worst. And he's like, I wouldn't advise you to do it, but like I understand the madness, you know, like I get it. And then I posted the cease and desist and I rewrote the last post that they cease and desist, and I was like, I still think this, you know? Yeah. And it was just so epic. And like it went from like me being some guy on LinkedIn to like everyone really understanding who I am, what I'm doing, and what my company does, right? Especially these 6 Sense people who are, you know, they're not our customers yet, which, you know, because our product's unusable for them right now, but like they will be in a couple of years, right? You know, so it just put us on a trajectory. You know, it just accelerated everything so much, you know, like. Yeah.
I think you also kind of mentioned churn kind of started happening a little bit, right? And you've been super transparent. I think this is also, by the way, one of the reasons all your content works so well is it feels like there's nothing you won't say, right? Maybe family, you keep kind of separate from this realm, which is totally
my
fair,
wife.
But you feel, but you feel
you know,
like
I made that docuseries. She's like, stop putting your fucking baby in this shit. Like, you know, she's like, get it out of the house. Like, I don't want to be in your stupid documentary. Like, if you want to do it on your own time. Don't do it around here. I'm like, all right, fine.
But I think that's also exactly actually why we wanted you on the show, because and the three of us were talking a bit about it before we hit record, which is no one really wants to talk about churn, except if it's great. You know, they have really low churn in this scenario.
Everyone is super transparent about the last funding event and, hey, we hit 100 million in ARR. Like,
signed this customer,
everyone is super transparent about the great things that are happening, right? But what makes, I think, your transparent post really interesting is, okay, this guy is serious. It's like 20 plus million. So this is not, oh, we just signed our first 3 customers and, you know, one isn't going so well kind of level. It's further than that. And then you also really don't have any problems pointing out stuff that arguably you as a CEO are the reason of why this is not working out, right? So it's kind of very...
We're not blaming you yet.
This is what it is, right?
We're not blaming you yet.
And this is just fantastic. This is what people are loving to see about it, right? And I'm sure there's a bunch of haters and blamers and stuff, but ultimately I think this is what makes it so interesting, right? And recently one of the things that we wanted to dig in a little bit today well, you've pointed out this, I think, for a while, but the new product that grew from 0 to 4 million in those, 7 months, basically has a fairly large churn problem, right?
Over 100% a year.
The,
You wouldn't even consider it a SaaS in its current state.
Yeah, no, I know.
I'm going to get it there eventually. But
this was one of my first questions was, how do you calculate that number? Because you can calculate it in so many different ways. From my perspective, being a little bit nerdy about this, actually, kind of how do you get to the 10, 15% that you're posting?
Yeah, so I just look at this barometrics dashboard. There's this guy named Nathan Barry who's got a company called ConvertKit. He always had a barometrics. You could just go to his public barometrics dashboard whenever you wanted. I would look at it once a quarter at least and just get, jealous and, so I always wanted to do that. And I couldn't ever with my last company because of nobody would let me post it because the churn was so bad. Right? When I was like, I don't care. I'm doing it from day one. I just know, I know my content is good because it's what I wanted to see from Drift in 2019 before I launched retention.com. They were so hot, growing so fast. They were putting out such dope shit, but I really wanted to know how they were doing it. You know what I mean? It's what are your metrics on all this? What channels are you using? How much are you spending on this? How much does it cost to get Wiley to produce a book, right? All this stuff. And then, I know that having a public dashboard that's super addictive for people because I was addicted to the ConvertKit guy, right? And it's kind of like the me telling the story of this company is so deeply intertwined with marketing the company itself that it's just it's such an easy way to just get people coming back and grow the affinity and get attachment to the story and all that stuff. So that's why I do that. And the way Barometrics calculates it is they just look at, if it's users, it's users canceled divided by user base 30 days ago. It's pretty simple.
Got it. So basically within the same month. And I guess kind of that's also with the dollar churn, basically. It's the same thing,
the dollar
right?
churn's
Basically.
how much dollar did you drop over the dollar you had 30 days ago?
Got it. Got it. Yes. So and I think maybe you want to mention the numbers. So we have pretty, well-educated folks in terms of kind of those churn numbers around. So
I don't even want to talk about it so bad. But so really, this will give you an idea of how I think about things, social media, marketing, getting attention or whatever. 11xAI, who's just been in the news for...
Yep.
So he has 100 accounts with us. And he churned 80 of them and put them all in one agency account. And that made our churn spike to 15 or 16% per month from 10, right? Mm-hmm. But I was like, oh, here's an opportunity to really be dramatic about a shockingly large churn number and get a ton of attention, be super brutally honest about it all, and then get a ton of feedback in a post. Right? This is kind of like a Sixth Sense thing. I'm here's an opportunity to really put out something shocking that is still true, but just shocking, right? How is this company at 3.5 million ARR and churning 15% per month? That doesn't even make sense. So again, we're back to 10 or 10.5%, but that was I would encourage people to think about social media that way. It's when an opportunity presents itself to do something that is shocking things will break through, period. Yeah. Right. So the amazing thing about that post was 393 people wrote me that canceled and told me why, right? The amount of time it would have taken to accumulate that level of intelligence if it was done through a product person and meetings and whatever. I don't even know if you could have over the course of a year. Right. And now, I put out a follow-up piece to it. I'm okay, so I actually think we have quite good product market fit with our free users who have barely any traffic because they're just euphoric about being able to see these people on their site and they don't really need to do anything with it and they're not paying for it. So it's just this incredible viral thing, right? And then there's companies like Rippling Ramp and whoever they inbound us and they buy, their growth team buys this feed and they know what to do with it. And we just price it cheap to do a fast deal. And there's actually pretty good product market fit with them because, whatever, they run it through Clay or they do whatever they do. And then I think our ICP is actually a company like my other company, retention.com. I had a few realizations. One, I think so there's been these company level identity products for a long time.
Yeah.
I think the way they're speaking about it was wrong, which led me to speak about it wrong. When someone hits your website for the first time, that's not a lead. It's like a very large distance from a lead, right? And that's really only one of many use cases of this signal. It's not a lead, it's a signal. I was talking about it in terms of leads and demos. So I was getting people to evaluate that in the workflow is leads and demos, and people are evaluating it based on leads and demos. But my team is super motivated to make this work because like, the girl running retention.com has 10% of the whole company. So like she needs to make it work. Each salesperson is getting 1 to 2 wins per day that are super interesting, that are not demos. Mm-hmm. But I'm setting the standard of success for this as demos. And I think, so there's basically like what I learned was that was a huge problem. And then there's this other massive filtering and routing problem for people that have salespeople where it's just unusable for a growth stage SaaS with the sales team, who I think ultimately are paying customers. So, what we think will solve most of this is if we run these signals through HubSpot, get them tagged with a rep, and then send it to the Slack channel with the rep tagged, which alerts them in Slack, rather than just this because it's like, if you get more than 20 leads per day, it's like, most of your traffic's crap. It's really frustrating to sort through crap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you're only sending one person each time, it's just not a good, it's not a good product for them. And the marketer's trying to like assess whether this is a good product or not based upon like seeing it or like trying to book demos themselves or whatever. So it's like, where this is going to go eventually is these are not leads. These are signals, which, even setting up the HubSpot integration is too hard in my opinion. I think like what my goal for this is and what could make it lower churn at some point is if like, Common Room is like great, but it's like super hard to use and very expensive. And like 85% of the value is like website visitor and job change signal. And then there's like 15% is all these other 1,000 things you can do that like, yeah, I'm sure Webflow gets value out of it, but like, come on, like your average Joe, marketer like Revis Prince, they're not going to be able to. So I think it's like a zero friction way where, we can basically, we're going to try it with a Chrome plugin, but like serve these signals up to people who they're either in conversations with an email or it's in their CRM already. And there's this other problem that I learned about where it's like, what now? And the what now problem is interesting because it's not that people aren't smart enough to figure out what to say to people who hit their website. It's like, if you think about my head of sales, Ben Dexter at retention.com, he runs a team. He's trying to close 5 deals before the end of the month. If you show him 3 leads, which are perfect, that hit the site for the first time, it's actually a liability because it's lower priority than anything else he's working on. He would like to reach out to them, but he's not just going to put them in some flow. Right? Like if it's a perfect lead, he wants to say something thoughtful, which like requires some sort of contextual research or like 5 minutes to figure out what to say to each of these people. So I think like the LLMs are like perfect to take that time to 0. So my whole hope is we can run our team lean enough so that at our current pricing, if all we wanted you to do was pay for the identity app, we could like do a freemium thing with this Chrome plugin. And if it works the way I'm thinking it'll work, only thing that has to happen is like the marketer installs it and they get their salespeople to just like plug the plugin in and it starts doing stuff. No one has to configure anything. And then it like tells you a signal and then it tells you what to tell that person and says why. Like that to me is like a killer product. It just freemium and like it doesn't even cost anything near what these other things do, right? Like a 1/10 of the price of all the other 6 cents, Common Room, user gems, like whatever else. So
can you talk a little bit about how you reached that conclusion, how you reached that analysis? Kind of what was the process that you were going through?
Swallowing my pride and reading these people telling me why my product sucked.
Yeah.
But it's like over and over and over. It's like, oh, I tried to like do this, but I couldn't filter them. somebody telling you you're fat and you got to eat better and work out like over and over and over again. Eventually you're like, you know what? I should probably eat better and work out. Like 1,000 people have told me that.
I think it's probably also better. Like you're hearing as the CEO, you're hearing it straight from the horse's mouth versus a bigger company, someone in product marketing or whatever might go and conduct the analysis and go back and say, so Adam and Tony, I looked at the churn. Here's why people don't, renew.
Like, it's just a CS excuse.
No, exactly. So I think that I can totally see that being the being a massive factor in this.
But it's also so crazy that you got that crucial insight from, again, like a LinkedIn post, and then lots of people answering. You're reading that stuff, and you figure out, oh, wait a minute, those are the 3 things we need to build, and also kind of getting the insight of, well, you have obviously a spectrum of companies with traffic on their website, right? There's a spectrum of that, from very little or none to like too much. And right now, your ICP is just this one mini slice in between that you can cater to because of the missing workflow and routing, basically, right? If you solve that, you unlock the ones that have a lot more volume, basically. And, once these things are being said out loud, by the way, everyone is like, of course. I mean, duh, like logically, right? Why didn't you build this like this from the beginning? But this is exactly this painful process of figuring out this product market fit and getting this kind of information from the horse's mouth, literally, so easily at that scale. That's just fucking magical, by the way. I think this is, people should be jealous.
But honestly, I'm also just thinking, if you got the amount of feedback you mentioned, how do you decide what to listen to and what not to listen to versus what to then do? Because I imagine that's also difficult.
So in a couple of things that you guys said, there was a strange issue that happened because a fundamental problem we have is that people are giving us feedback on this web app that we have. And like me and my co-founder, Diana, don't think that the web app is how we want our ICP users consuming this signal. So, but we're getting feedback on the web app and things people want us to improve because that's what they have. Mm-hmm. And they're being presented this product in the way that they're being presented the product. So like they're giving us feedback on how they would like to turn leads into demos using a web app. And like Diana, who runs retention.com, she's like, I have a very, very strong feeling that is not the most valuable use of this. Yeah. So we kind of had this struggle with our support guy and our growth guy, who are kind of the on the ground product people talking to all these customers, where it's like, this is what people want. And I'm like, I'm not saying we don't need that eventually, but like those will be very incremental changes to this offer. Might get our churn to like 9-8% or something like that. Like with what I'm talking about, if we can actually deliver what I'm saying, it is a totally new transformational use of this technology, right? Like it's kind of what 6 Sense tried to do, serve me up some leads and tell me, and tell me who has your contact. So yeah, that is just the conviction that she and I have from talking. I have the conviction from talking to her. It's like, it's our experience building our last company together that like makes it like, it was weird. It was like, it really didn't start taking off until we stopped letting the market decide what to do with the product. And we told people exactly what to do. And there were 2 other vendors selling the exact same thing. They were just letting the market decide what to do with it. Like the day we showed up and we're like, okay, tell me your tech stack. Okay, here's a checklist. Just do this, say this, whatever. It was just like, so that's kind of where we're at with this. Like, I'm so deeply convicted that if we continue to sell leads and demos, we will fail. I mean, what fail? Like we'll get to like 5, 7, 10 million ARR. How big can you get with 11% monthly churn? I don't know.
Yeah.
Not very high, not very big. But like none of these companies are big, right? Because like none of them really figured this out. Like that it's not, they didn't figure out how to elegantly sort of like get the value of this to people in a very low friction way. Nobody has. And by the way, like I still don't think it's going to be as low churn as a CRM, because at the end of the day, it still is just like an intent signal. And there's just a lot of reasons why you would turn off an intent signal or a lead source that you wouldn't cancel a CRM.
Would you actually say you have product market fit?
No. Definitely not. Well, I would say we have product market fit with our free users, which is not that. I mean, it's helpful for the virality of it. And I would say we actually have decent product market fit with enterprise, which we're not focused on, because there's a lot of reasons why I'm not focused on enterprise. I don't think you can focus on both in the beginning. I think it's one or the other. We can go into that, but like we've picked, we let enterprise inbound us, and if they're willing to deal as they would deal if they were a small business, like we'll allow them like maybe one mock-up if it's like somebody really special, but everybody else we're like, here's a super cheap price. Here's our MSA, sign it or walk.
Yeah.
It's like not this whole, what an enterprise sale would be. So, but for who I think this is the most valuable for, we are not even close. In fact, I said it in my last post, it's unusable. It's not that it doesn't have product market fit. They can't even use it. So yeah.
The thing is, right? Because everyone said, I mean, and then I think this is now, last 4 years to what we're looking at now. But everyone still says, well, if you hit 1 million ARR, you have pro market fit.
Yeah.
Right? And
Total
you got there.
Lies.
So exactly, that's exactly my point, right? And I think in your case, obviously kind of the churn number is what should give you pause, and it's definitely giving you pause to try and figure this out. But that would also be from my perspective, it's like, hey, wait a minute, I think the distribution game works fantastically well, right? Kind of that is basically kind of what got you to this so absolutely quickly. But there's something here that on the product market fit side still needs to be kind of tweaked. I mean, and I'm not trying to tell you anything, Adam. I think all of this is clear. I'm just trying to reflect also for our audience here on there's something that obviously isn't working out right now that needs to be tweaked in order to get to this product market fit thing. My follow-up question on this is actually, so you have a couple of convictions now, right? There's something, there maybe needs to be some expectation management, right? It's not a lead, it's a signal. There's something with the filtering and routing. There's something with the what now, right? You have kind of those three convictions around this. And now the team is executing against it. How do you plan to track against this? Is it only going to be, oh, my churn numbers going down and this is how we're tracking? Or do you have some more detailed stuff behind the scenes in order to be like really, not only quantitatively understand that you're improving, but also, hey, we're getting closer to a little bit of the vision that you're having, right? Because it's a mix from, hey, we got some feedback and this is where we want to take the company, and therefore we're prioritizing like this. So it's not only quantitative what you're doing here, right? So how do you track, or how do you envision to track, those hypotheses that you have for them to actually hit?
So like, my goal for this next iteration is to build something that our sales team, if you took it away from them, they'd be like, hold on, no, give it back. You know what I mean? Like, so we have the luxury of having that. That's step one. The nice thing is, I think at the very worst, we're just kind of where we are, and this will stall out at like double or triple the size that it is. Mm-hmm. That's like, in like, I'm running it as a cash flow business, right? So it's like, the two companies are already in a great spot. If that happens, it's an even better spot. So that's like kind of worst case scenario. If I can actually get something that this team will not let go of, then I know it works across everyone in their situation. And then I have this incredible ability to have like this really high velocity freemium distribution mechanism. And I'm just going to try to get it in everybody's hands. If that doesn't happen, back to the drawing board. We have some other ideas of other stuff we could do, but I will have no problem just like turning that off. If it's like a nice to have, but Diana's literally like, we talk about it all the time. She's like, if I had what we're talking about, I've had a signal problem for 5 years, and none of the tools on the market. She's like, I'm doing this common room demo. I literally want 3% of what they're talking to me about, but their product is designed to give you 100% of it. So yeah, the reason we're selling so much is because it's obvious why the website visitor signal is the most valuable signal there is. None of the vendors have set it up to actually get value to the rep.
I think it's a super simple value prop. I think that helps a lot. And I think you mentioned it earlier, the magic moment is truly magic, right? And
Yeah,
you kind
that's
of
different.
you get to the magic moment really quickly,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's pretty interesting. I have a last question, but like
No, permitted. You're allowed. Last question.
so this is actually kind of also the finishing question. Just wanted to kind of jump to one other mini topic in the end. So we focus on this churn thing. And I'm not sure how you're going to, I'm really interested myself how you're going to answer this. So we talked about the 6 cents beef that was going on, which was, back then I discussed it with someone and we called it confrontational marketing. Basically saying like, hey, Salesforce, Mark Benioff did this. Drift did it, David Cancel and Gerhard kind of did this to a degree, like no forms. So that people know this works, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
My question, Adam, the same. So you had also confrontation with Mark Kozaglov.
Yeah.
Was this planned? Kind of, did you have a Mark call and like, hey, Mark, you want to launch this company? I want to kind of drive this thing up. This confrontational thing works really great.
Yeah.
Should we get into a fight publicly?
Let's do like Mark and Elon.
Yeah. I'll tell you what happened. We were on this webinar together. Jason Bay, who's a sales trainer, we were on his webinar. And Mark just like said some stuff that I didn't like. He was like, I was like talking about, this founder brand stuff. He's like, oh, everybody's going to copy that and it's going to stop working. I was like, no way, man. If everybody copies it, like they can't, right? Like no one can, like there are a lot of reasons why a SaaS CEO cannot talk about his churn publicly, right? Yes. Like that's the reason why no one does. There's a lot of reasons why you can't, right? You don't want to, but even if you did, your investors would be like, are you out of your fucking mind? Like you're going to like blow the odds of us doing another round by writing this, right? So there's a lot of reasons why people can't write what I'm writing. Anyway, I had an issue like that, dropped a post about it. Then he's the guy who's like inbound led outbound, it's stupid. It's not a thing or whatever. So like I had another post about that. And then he started writing back at me and we went back and forth 5 or 6 times. And then I was like, dude, you want to try to like duke it out publicly? And he's like, fuck yeah. And then it started not getting as good. Honestly.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like it was better before we coordinated anything.
Yeah.
It was like we coordinated and then there was like, he did one, then I did one that was like really good. And then he followed it up the next day and everybody was like, you guys are planning this. I was like, dude, we just, there's a cadence thing. There's like, whatever. So, and then I had him on my show and like on social media, it's like so easy to just talk past each other, It's like, bootstrapping's harder. It's like, you know what I mean? And then you get on a show and you start he's a very reasonable and intelligent dude, right? Like everything he's saying is true and correct. And everything that I'm saying, even though it's the opposite, is also true and correct. So it wasn't boring. It wasn't a good show. It wasn't what people wanted, right? Like, but so that's the story there. The confrontation works. I kind of wish we hadn't have coordinated anything because it would have probably kept going,
Yeah. I was just going to say, it's like when we try and coordinate intros, they also kind of suck. So that's how it is. Adam, thanks so much for hopping on the show, enlightening us and being so transparent. If you, the listener, haven't seen Adam yet, check him out on LinkedIn. There's a ton of great posts I definitely recommend to check out. We'll add a link in the show notes.
And check out RB2B.
Please do. Adam, thanks so much for joining. Bye.
Thanks, guys.